Hello and welcome to Growing in Uncertainty. My name is Tess Miller, and through my seminar and coaching business, Wings Unfolded, I help people who love what they're doing, but they're not sure where it's going yet. And one of the reasons I post these videos is because an important theme in my life has been being stuck, in that place between where you were and where you want to be. And it's such an uncertain place to be. So creating these videos about working through my own stuck places is a way that I hope that we can grow in uncertainty together. So as just kind of a fun exercise, I thought I would talk about dream interpretation today. It's something that I've done for a long time in my life, looking at my dreams, paying attention to some of the themes in my dreams, and trying to figure out what in the world my dreams are trying to tell me. I've always noticed how dreams can accompany whatever is going on in my life in some pretty profound ways. They can sometimes give me direction about decisions I'm trying to make or directions I'm trying to go in my life. They can also help me let go of some of the emotional baggage that I've been hanging on to for so long. And just in general, dreams help me look at my life in a little bit different way so that I can be more creative in how I want to be proceeding and going forward with whatever is happening. So dreaming is how our subconscious mind gets rid of a lot of the stuff that's playing in the background of our lives. That stuff that, you try to push away while you're doing your work or while you're talking to someone. That there's stuff just kind of below the surface nagging at you, but you push it away because in that moment it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate or worth your time or energy to focus on it. Sometimes we just have to do that throughout our days, but then sometimes we don't get back to the stuff that's playing in the background of our lives. And so the dreamscape is where a lot of that can happen. Our subconscious mind says, hey, I remember what you were supposed to look at today. Here you go. But it doesn't put it together in really literal ways. It's not like it plays scenes from something that happened earlier in the day or that thing that triggered you. Your dreamscape is where your subconscious mind starts to play. And it gets you to think in a very different way about what's going on internally. And one thing that I've noticed about the dreams that I've had is that certain dreams have certain kinds of meanings, or, different dreams have different purposes. And so that affects the way that I might interpret my dream. So for example, a lot of my dreams are about figuring something out. If I have a problem that's going on in my life and it's just, a real quandary and I'm just really trying to figure it out, sometimes my subconscious mind will give me a dream that has me trying to figure something out in the dream, but it might not be literal to what I'm trying to figure out, except one time it was. So one time in college, I was doing some math homework and I was up really late at night trying to figure out a math problem. It was the very last problem that I needed to figure out for my homework for the next day. And I just could not get it. I couldn't figure it out. It was the type of thing where I knew what the right answer was because you could look it up in the back of the book, but I had to prove through my homework that I knew how to figure it out. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't come up with the right answer. So I decided, you know what, it's late. I'm just going to go to bed. I'm going to sleep on it. And maybe in the morning, I'll be able to do something with it. And so I went to bed. And at some point in my dreaming, I started dreaming about doing this math problem. And I went over it and over and over it. And at some point in the dream, I realized that I was forgetting a key component to the equation. And so I plugged it in my dream, And sure enough, it gave me the right answer. Well, when I woke up in the morning, I could remember that dream. And I thought, well, a lot of times in my dreams, I can dream that I've figured something out correctly, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it actually will work. But I'll try it. And so I tried it, and sure enough, it gave me the right answer. So that is an example of when dreams are literally trying to just help you figure something out, and it lets your brain, go through the process. But oftentimes it's just, trying to go through the action of figuring something out, and might use symbols instead to represent your real waking life. Some dreams are actually premonitions. I know that sounds a little woo, but I have had premonition dreams before. Recently, I had a dream that I was with a whole bunch of friends, and one of my friends had injured a wrist, and I went in to see if she was okay, if she needed any help, and she was on the phone with a doctor to figure out what she needed to do next to fix her wrist. And the next day in waking life, I found out that my friend actually had to get surgery on that wrist. So that was, wow, okay, I guess my dream was trying to tell me something there. Some dreams are letting you know what you want in your life or what you value in your life. And this is kind of neat because sometimes we forget or we push aside what we really want or what we really value. But in your dream state, this is where you can really, find that it's underneath the surface. It's right there. You really do know what you want and what you need and what you value. So, for example, recently I had a dream that I had just purchased a mansion. And I was not inside of this mansion. I was just outside of the mansion. But I knew that I had bought the mansion. It was beautiful. It was white and beautiful landscaping. I never did see the full outside of the mansion. I just knew in my dream that it was a mansion. But along with purchasing this mansion, for whatever reason, because dream logic, I also purchased a zoo. There was a small zoo that came with the mansion. And I remember in the dream thinking about, the practicality of not only taking care of this mansion, but the zoo and the zoo animals. And these weren't just like petting zoo animals. These were like lions and tigers. And there was also like a sea feature where there were dolphins jumping in the fountain. And it was a zoo. And I remember thinking, I don't really want a zoo. I like these animals. They're sweet. But I think this would be something better suited to somebody who wants to take care of a zoo. And so I was starting to think about how I would go about selling the zoo and making sure that these animals had a good home. So now on the one hand, this might represent like, oh, wow, I really value having a mansion and a zoo, or something, or do I really want a mansion? And no, I don't want a mansion. And I'll take you through my process of interpreting dreams, but the long and short of it for that dream is that the way I'm interpreting it is that as I'm going on in my life and stepping into new roles in my life, I'm feeling like I'm growing into a bigger space in my life. And I'm ready for that. I want that bigger space and a different way of seeing myself. But I also need to let go of the chaos, the zoo, that might be accompanying that bigger way of being. So really what I want and what I really value is finding ways to simplify my life, letting go of the chaos. So just that's the way I would interpret that dream. And again, I'll take you through my process of how I got to that interpretation in a little bit. So the weirdest dreams for me, though, the ones that when I have them, they just really don't make any sense at all. Those tend to be centered around my unprocessed emotions. They might be really old emotions that are running in the background of my life, or they might be relatively new, triggered emotions. And later on in today's episode, I'm going to share a couple recent dreams that I've had that really demonstrate what I mean by the unprocessed emotions and how those show up for me in really weird ways. I know that a lot of people say that they can't remember their dreams, so why bother? And there are actually a lot of resources online about how you can develop that skill of recalling your dreams. Some people say that one of the reasons we don't recall dreams is because we're not getting enough sleep. So if you can get more sleep, it's like if we don't get into that deep REM state, REM, rapid eye movement state of sleep, our chances of having dreams are lessened. So if you can find ways to give yourself more time to sleep, great. Sometimes it can be medications. I know some people take certain medications and that prevents them from achieving those deep states of sleep. But more often than not, it's because people aren't setting the intention to remember their dreams when they wake up. It's really important, especially right after you wake up, to, pay attention to what you were just dealing with in your mind. And sometimes if you can just hook onto one thread of what you were waking up with, you can start to backtrack and remember, oh yeah, that's right. Before this, there was this. And then before that, this happened. And then pretty soon you have the whole dream that you were having. So it's really important as you wake up, just hold on to something, even if it's just an emotion or a thought or an image. That might be all that's enough for you to think about as you're waking up still to help you remember what your dream was. And then just put pen to paper, start writing about your dream, trying to remember every detail and writing about it. Try to get all of your senses involved. Did you smell anything? Did you feel anything physical? Like sometimes I'll have physical pain in my dreams. If I'm falling from an airplane and I hit the ground, I have felt pain before. Probably nothing like the real pain you would feel falling from an airplane, but pain nevertheless. Who were you talking to? What voices were you hearing, or what sounds were you hearing? What were you experiencing emotionally? All of those things. If you can get all of your senses involved and then write everything down for yourself, that can be such a great way to help set up the interpretation process of dreams. This takes practice, definitely. I know that for a while I was making sure that as soon as I realized I was having a dream, I would wake up and I would start writing about it, even if it was 3:00 in the morning. And I know that's not ideal for everybody, especially if you have a hard time falling back to sleep. But if you are pretty confident that you could take a second to write out whatever you were in the middle of dreaming at that moment and then go back to sleep, it's worth it, I promise, because in the morning, chances are really good. You might not remember the dream, but when you see what you've written, that'll be really interesting for you to read when you wake up. So, and the more you recall your dreams, the more you try to write them down and set the intention before you go to sleep. Remember my dreams, then the more you will start to do it. It's like a muscle that you can develop over time. Something else that a lot of people say is that their dreams are too weird to interpret. They don't relate to anything that's actually going on in their lives. And it's very true that sometimes dreams can be indecipherable sometimes, but oftentimes there are certain symbols in dreams that are universal to the human collective, to the human experience. And there are a lot of dream dictionaries out there online, or actual book dictionaries, that list a whole bunch of symbols that are prevalent in a lot of people's dreams throughout history, and what those symbols tend to mean. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the symbols that you have in your dreams, like a feather or your teeth falling out or a birthday cake, that doesn't necessarily mean that those symbols that you read about in the dream dictionary are going to actually resonate with you. And that's something really important to remember, is that you never want to just go along with whatever the dream dictionary is telling you unless it resonates with you. If you read something about a symbol and it makes you think about something that's going on in your life now, or something that has happened in your past, then yes, it sounds like, that symbol definition in that dream dictionary is working for you. But if it doesn't really resonate with you, if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, then it might not be for you. And that's okay. It's important for you to think about, okay, well, what is this symbol, and what does it represent to me in my life as I am? When I've seen this symbol in my life, what does it make me think of? And that's where you can start to be really creative with your dream symbols and themes and experiences. So logic doesn't always work with dream interpretation. So for example, if you're having a dream about something horrible like killing somebody, that probably doesn't mean that you want to kill somebody. It probably just means, as I'll talk about in a little bit, that you want to put to end something in your life, or maybe something within you that you're not very happy about. Maybe it's a behavior or a habit of yours that you would like to kill or stop. It just, putting something to rest, to end. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to kill somebody. So it's important to get out of your logical brain and more into your artistic, creative, symbol, philosophical brain. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm starting to interpret my dreams is to pay attention to how I felt emotionally in my dream as certain things happened. For example, my mansion dream, the reason I got to the interpretation I got to is because I focused on what I was feeling. I was feeling really stable and secure and relaxed and calm and confident, and everything was working out really well in my life, except for this zoo. There was this little bit of chaos. It wasn't bad chaos. Again, like I said, the animals were really sweet, and they were fun to watch, and they weren't scary at all. But I knew that I wasn't going to want to have to take care of that. If I had gone to a dream dictionary and I had looked up, well, what does a tiger symbolize? Because there was a tiger in that mansion dream. Tigers represent fear, or a fear of facing something that's, really scary in your life. Well, that wasn't really the feeling I was getting in that dream. I wasn't afraid of the tigers or the lions or the monkeys or anything that I was seeing. I wasn't afraid of them at all. I just felt love and gratitude and appreciation for them, but I knew that I didn't want to have to take care of them. And so that's where I got to the point of realizing, okay, well, what's going on in my life that I've had gratitude for, that I no longer need? I no longer want to take care of this part of my life. And actually, there's a lot of stuff that, like physical, material stuff that I've been thinking about getting rid of. And also in terms of how I go about my career, I'm doing things differently and offloading some things. And so that represents a certain kind of chaos, or an amount of like energy that I would have to invest in it if I kept these things in my life. But I'm ready to let these things go. So that's how I got to my mansion dream interpretation. Something else to consider when you're interpreting your dreams is that they often say, those who study dreams, they often say that you are every character in your dream. Everybody. So you have a dream about your family members. You are every single family member in that dream. Oftentimes, maybe not always, but oftentimes, each one of those family members in your dream represents a different part of you. You know, for example, maybe if you dreamt about your father, that represented the part of you that was, you know, looking for structure and maybe control and a solid schedule, and just, you know, really having things set and controlled and scheduled. If you had a dream about a sibling, you could think about, well, you know, what does that sibling represent to me in my life, and where do I have that inside of me? Am I nurturing that part of myself? You know, what kind of relationship do I have with that part of myself? What was happening in the dream? Was I fighting with my sibling? And if that's the case, am I fighting with that part of myself? These are some of the kinds of questions I would be asking myself. If there's a stranger in your dream, I always love that one, because it makes me think about, well, what aspect of myself right now in my life am I not recognizing, you know, or I don't know this part of myself yet. I need to get to know this part of myself and figure out what it means, and do I want to get to know it a little bit better or not? So, you know, just thinking about also how you felt around the different people in your dream can help you have an understanding of how you feel about yourself, or different aspects of yourself. So, you know, just something to think about in your own dreams and apply. That goes for animals and objects too. Like, we can be all of the things that are in our dreams. I already talked about symbols, looking for the symbols in our dreams. You know, this is where the dream dictionary definitely comes in handy. You know, if nothing else, the symbols in a dream can help to get the ball rolling. If you're really not sure, what in the world does this dream mean? And I'm going to share a dream with you that, you know, really, if I didn't know this from looking at a dream dictionary, I might interpret my dream very differently. But anyway, so just think about, you know, what are some of those symbols that are popping up in your dreams. So I'm going to share a couple dreams with you and my interpretations of them, so you can see how I work through the process of interpreting, and you know, take note of that process as I go on. So the first dream I want to share is one that it's a themed dream that I've had several times in my life, and you may have had this one too. It's what I affectionately call my teeth falling out dream. And in it, in all the dreams, like, the basic theme is that my teeth fall out, and I don't really know why, and then I have to figure out what I want to do about it. So my most recent teeth falling out dream, I pulled out one of my back molars because it felt, I could feel physical pain, and I could feel it moving around in my gums. And so I pulled it out and looked at it and saw that half the roots were gone, but half the roots were still there. And so I had to think about, what do I want to do with this? And I ultimately decided to put it back in, so I could show my dentist later on. And then later on, I noticed that a front tooth was really loose, and so I pulled that one out, and pretty soon I was looking at my teeth in the mirror and realizing that they were all kind of yellowish brown and cracked, and it looked like they were all going to fall out pretty soon. So I wasn't really like totally panicking about it because I knew that my dentist was going to be able to help me somehow. So again, I'm paying attention to the feelings that were coming up for me. I certainly wasn't happy that my teeth were falling out, but it still wasn't like, believe me, in real waking life, I would hightail it to the dentist right away. You know, there would be no hesitation whatsoever. But, you know, suffice it to say, in my dream, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll have to wait until my next dentist appointment to, you know, talk about this with my dentist. So anyway, I put my teeth back, and then pretty soon I woke up. Now, the fact that so teeth falling out, that always for me represents control, or where I don't feel like I have control in my life. And one of the things that was interesting about this dream was that half of the roots were gone. Not all the roots, just half of them. And again, this I think relates to what's going on in my life, where not everything in my life has changed, but a lot of things have changed. You know, a lot of things aren't there anymore, but most things are still there. But it's like because those things aren't there anymore, I'm feeling like I'm not holding on to anything. And that was my tooth. My tooth was falling out because it was missing half of the roots. So that dream represented to the lack of control I've been feeling in my life because certain things aren't there right now. The second dream that I want to share with you is even more bizarre. So I'm just going to share it and we'll go from there. The dream, I was in a high school, and it was a nondescript high school. It was no high school I've been in waking life, but I knew it was a high school. I was in the bathroom, and I was wearing like one of those safety vests if you're, you know, going to go hunting or whatever, and you don't want to get shot. And there was something about certain students who were out to get me at the high school, and I knew I had to be the one to shoot them first. Again, this is a fun one where you definitely don't want to use your logical mind for interpreting this dream. The kind of gun, and by the way, if you know me, you know that I do not believe in guns. I do not own a gun. Not that I think that, you know, hunting is necessarily a horrible thing. It's just that I don't believe that I need to have a gun for myself. But in my dream, I had a gun, and it was a shotgun, and for some reason it had 3 barrels. And so whenever it would shoot like in a triangle shape or whatever. And the barrels were kind of like for musket balls for some reason. And so I needed to protect myself from these students, but I also needed to be quick about it and also kind of covert. And the students came in, and there was something wrong with them. I don't know if they were zombies or whatever, but there was something wrong with them. And so I shot them, and sure enough, they were hit by the 3 muskets, and they completely dissolved into ash. Like they just instantly turned into ash. And so then I had to, like, once they were gone, I had to like scrape up the ash and get rid of it without anybody knowing. And so I did that, and I felt pretty confident that I had made sure that nobody knew what had happened and that everything was safe and I had done the right thing. And then I woke up. So the way that I'm interpreting that, because I wasn't, you know, the feelings that I had in that dream weren't about like murdering someone because they had done something to me. It was more about like, for the safety and protection of others, I need to do this. That sort of tells me that, and again, remember, I'm interpreting this as I am everybody in my dream. So the students that I was needing to confront, those are aspects of myself that in my waking life, I'm feeling like I need to kill and dissolve and get rid of the evidence of those aspects of myself without anybody knowing about it. Now I haven't quite figured out yet in my waking life, what aspects am I trying to kill off? Sometimes dream interpretation takes a while, and I just had this dream like a few nights ago. So I'm still trying to figure out, some of those details, but I wrote it down. And that's why it's important to write your dreams down, because you might not know right away what a dream means, but you can come back to it later on and look at it in hindsight, like, oh yeah, that's what was going on in my life, and I dreamed that. That's really interesting. So anyway, that, ultimately is how I would interpret that dream for myself, is that, I'm darn sure that there are certain aspects of myself that it's time for me to let go of. Maybe it's certain patterns in my life, patterns of being or habits or whatever, that I know I need to get rid of, and I want to do it discreetly so that I don't upset anybody else in my surroundings. So anyway, that's just an idea of how I go about interpreting. Something that's really, really important as you're starting to pay attention to your dreams and recording them and maybe sharing them with other people, it's really important to remember that nobody else can interpret your dreams for you. You need to be the one to decide what a dream means for you. It's totally okay. And by the way, that goes the other way around too. You should not be interpreting other people's dreams either. Now, if you have someone in your life that's like, oh man, I had this really weird dream, I want to share it with you, what do you think? You can say, well, if that were my dream, I would interpret it as do. And you can say, this symbolizes this for me in my life. And if I had this feeling, then this. You might even ask your friend questions about the dream, but you may not interpret it for them. Oh, that means this. It means your cat is gonna die next week. No, that's not okay. But I think helping your friend figure out what that dream might mean to them could involve asking them questions about it and maybe suggesting, if this were my dream, then I might look at it this way. And that can help them give perspective or a starting off point for how they might want to interpret their own dream. And then the same thing, when you ask for other people's advice, what does this mean? What do you think? Make sure it's someone you trust to not just automatically give you an interpretation. Ask them to ask you questions about it so you can talk about it further, because they might think of an angle that you're not thinking of yet. So it can be just a really fun activity for you and a friend to kind of dig a little bit deeper into your psyche. So and also just remember that this takes practice, remembering your dreams and writing them down, remembering to write them down, and then interpreting them, whether in the moment or over time. Those three things really take some practice. So I hope this show has given you some really good ideas and resonates with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm always so thankful and grateful for any feedback you might want to share. If you would like to share this with friends and family, please do that. The more you like or share or subscribe to anything I have, the more easily I can be found on all of my social media platforms. So I greatly appreciate that. You can stay tuned to any of my updates on Facebook or LinkedIn under my business name, Wings Unfolded. And you can find me on Instagram and YouTube under my name, Tess Miller. And you can go to my website, www.tess-miller.com, for any resources, more information on what I do as a coach, as a therapeutic musician and sound healer, and any other updates that I have there. I'm working on my website. It's not quite updated with everything that I have going on, and I'm hoping to make a big announcement pretty soon, so stay tuned. But anyway, if there's anything in your life that you'd really like help with in shifting or transitioning or making some kind of change happen in your life, send me a private message. I'd love to help you and help you figure it out. Remember that it's okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Have an amazing week and take care.